Opo, I'm here na po in Samar.
Tamar, okay. Sister Odisa? Sister Odisa, are you here? Wala pa. Sister Nena?
Present, Father. Sister Odessa is already in.
Okay, she's here already, okay. Sister Nena is here. Christine, are you here? Christine? Christine, are you here? Okay, Father Serge? Father Serge? Sister Liselda? Yes, I see Sister. Good afternoon. Sister Opelia?
Present, Father.
Yes, I see you. Sister Marian?
Present, Father.
Okay. And okay,
Present,
Nwindin.
Father.
Yes, thank you. Nwindin T is here. Sister Chuk. Sister Chuk. Are you present, Sister Chuk? Not yet. Kakuku is not here. Sister Daisy. Sister Daisy, are you here? Not yet. Sister Eugenia.
Present, Father, present.
Okay, you're here. Sister Eugenia.
Present, Father.
Okay, good afternoon. Tran Van Tuan is here. And Sister Ime.
Present, Father. Good afternoon.
Afternoon. So just to check again, Christine is not yet here. Oh, you're here. Okay. You're here, Christine. Okay, thank you. Father Serge? Okay, not yet. Okay, that's good. So we have checked our attendance. I just want to check how this sounds. Is my voice clear with the microphone?
Yes.
Yes, it's clear. Or maybe better if I want to check if it's also clear even without the microphone. Is my voice clear even without the microphone as we have done in the past?
Yes, Father.
Okay naman. Yeah, I also hear there are three of us here in the classroom. Yeah, we also hear their voice very clearly. No? Yeah. I think we have a good sound system here. Let's begin with our prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. God our Father, as we gather once again for our class today, we keep in our special prayers people whom we care for, people, men and women who are under us in terms of accompaniment and guidance in their various stages of formation. So we pray for them. We pray that they may respond generously to the call of God, whether it be in religious life or not in religious life. And as we go about our daily tasks as formators or formators to be, we also ask for the humble grace that we may be worthy enough to help accompany these men and women, whatever needs to be purified in our spirits and in our persons. We ask for the intervention of the Holy Spirit so that we ourselves may be formed to accompany these young men and women. We ask for the guidance of our Blessed Mother. First of all, we pray for the faith that our Blessed Mother also had in her Son Jesus. We pray for perseverance in everything that we do according to the model of our Blessed Mother. Let us pray the Hail Mary. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with you. Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. So good afternoon to everyone. I'm so thankful to the Lord because, as you notice, My voice has come back. For the past weeks, I was very husky in my voice. I feel, I think it's better now, I hope, until the end of our class. So, as I said last week, we will discuss certain matters and procedures regarding separation from our institutes, whether it be a religious congregation or also a society of apostolic life. Okay? For now, the diocesan priesthood and formation is not yet covered by this. No? So we're just talking about religious congregations and societies of apostolic life. So first, let's talk about transfer. Transfer is one way whereby a religious or a member of the Society of Apostolic Life separates from the institute. So here we're talking about perpetually professed members of institute. They can transfer from their own religious institute to another.
Father,
Okay, so-
we cannot see your
sorry.
PowerPoint.
Okay, now, do you see now? Okay, sorry, let me check. Do you see me on your screen with the PowerPoint?
Yeah. Yes,
Yes,
Father.
Father.
Okay, now you see, okay. So for example, therefore, I'm a Jesuit, for example, no? And this has happened in the past. There was a Jesuit from Indonesia, perpetually professed. In fact, he's kind of rather not really old, but more than middle age. He felt all through the past years this kind of a seeming call from God, leading him to join a monastic congregation. Okay, that is the example. I think it was the Trappists, I think. He had that attraction to the Trappists, but he was a perpetually professed Jesuit. So that is an example. Now, there are conditions to be followed. Now, to be able to do that, one needs the permission of the general of the Society of Jesus and the major superior, the supreme moderator of the Trappists. No? Permission from both, from the two, the sending congregation and the receiving institute. And of course, before the supreme moderator can decide, both should have the consent of the councils. Okay, that's very standard, no? It's called a consent, huh? Meaning, if the supreme moderator needs the consent, there should be voting. The superior general is not just consulting. When the superior general consults, and if canon law says just consult, he may or may not decide according to the mind of the consult. But here there's a voting, should be a consent. Okay. So those are the basic requirements. Supreme moderators should make the decision. Now in this case, a transfer from one autonomous monastery, an independent monastery sui juris, to another monastery of the same institute or the same federation or confederation. So an example might be, the Benedictines. They have monasteries. They are spread out all over the world. They are organized in some kind of a federation. Okay, so remember, each monastery is independent. It's autonomous. So it's not just like us, religious congregations. No, I will transfer from the Philippine province to the Indonesian province. It's the same congregation. Here we are talking about autonomous monasteries. No, again, the consent of the major superior of both monasteries, the sending and the receiving. No, they are what we call the supreme moderators of each monastery. Again, with the consent, it's practically the same with religious institutes which are not monastic. No, consent of the chapter of the receiving monastery. What is the difference here? According to the law, the receiving monastery should give the consent. Okay? So it's the receiving monastery gives the consent. Now, of course, the major superior of the person wanting to transfer, I think it's common sense that he or she would like to consult also the consult, no? Or the chapter of such monastery. When the transfer is effected, a new profession is not required for autonomous monasteries, no? But only for this, only for this. The Carmels or the Benedictines, no new profession is required when the transfer is effected. Okay, now let's be more specific now, no? A religious congregation to a secular institute or to a society of apostolic life, and vice versa. Example, let's talk about an MSC, Missionary of the Sacred Heart, that is a religious institute, would like to transfer to the congregation of Father Serge, no? Which is a society of apostolic life, the congregation of Jesus and Mary. So what happens? As mentioned, both the Supreme Moderator should give their permission with the consent of their councils. Number two, that is not enough. The permission of the Holy See is required. It does not only remain in the level of the general. It has to go higher to the Vatican. And the reason is this: they are perpetually professed. When you are perpetually professed, now the Vatican has competence over us. No? That's it. Now, why such kind of a very strict requirements? The general should decide, the Vatican, because such transfer involves a change in the nature of life itself, and there is some risk. No? The Vatican would like to make sure that this transfer will not be, will be beneficial first for the person concerned, and the person will not be suffering from some problem. So they want to make sure that this is really well thought out, not just by the individual, but by the congregation itself. Okay, so those levels of permission. So what happens? The MSC will transfer to the Society of Apostolic Life. Probation period at least 3 years. No? 3 years. Remember, the one who transferred is already perpetually professed, but in the old congregation. Now, when the transfer is done, within 3 years, there will be no profession. It will be a probation. Now, what kind of probation? Then, of course, you will ask. Remember, the code does not say novitiate. It does not say novitiate, just a probation period. There is no requirement that the person will do the novitiate in the new congregation. Surely, what will the probation period entail? Anyone? If you were the general of the receiving congregation, what kind of probation will you provide? Okay, just example, Sister Imen, do you have an idea? What will you provide to this transferee? What kind of probation? Yes, one example.
Maybe Father give her opportunity to experience our community life.
Okay, experience.
Yes,
Yes.
the different communities.
Okay, good. To introduce the person, of course, to the persons within the institute. Other kinds of orientation that you'll provide. Sister Ophelia, any idea?
I think, Father, that's
Maybe.
okay, 3 years of provision, because actually she is also consecrated, or she has already undergone community life. I think
Yes.
that's okay. 3 years of provision, Father.
Okay, and then what kind of formation or in quotation marks or orientation will be done? What will be the content of that orientation?
Maybe, Father, we have to orient her to the as the novitiate formation goes, Father, in canonical orientations. Also
Like what?
our charism, Father.
Charism, of course, definitely.
Yes.
So
Yes.
the thing that you reported in class. No, the thing that
Yes.
you reported in class, you remember? Yes, because the person, but of course, okay, before the person actually went to you, no, or even inquired for transfer, the person might have already read up, no, nagbasa na yan, no, about your congregation. Now it's different when the person is in the congregation on probation, then that there will be a more intensive kind of similar to a novitiate formation. Okay?
Yes.
So there, and then also, of course, as mentioned by Sister Ime, introduction to the persons and to the life of the institute, at least for 3 years. Okay? Now, which means, if everything is favorable, after 3 years, the person may make a perpetual profession in the new institute. Okay? Now, if not, if a member refuses to make this profession, or the person is not admitted, hindi tinanggap, no? It seems that, for example, the provincial of the congregation who is in direct contact with the transferee feels that probably this is not the vocation for him. So, what will happen? That person will return to the original institute. Now, back to the original or back to sender, parang gano'n, no? Unless the person would like to leave na. It's possible the person will just want to leave the congregation. If not, if the person still wants to remain in the congregation, then he returns to the original institute. And that is what happened to the Indonesian Jesuit who entered the monastery, and then he came back, and then back to the Society of Jesus. Now remember, the transferee has vows in the original institute. There is no need to take vows again in the original institute because he or she has valid vows. Okay? Okay, you have questions, Sister Odisa?
Yes, Father, good afternoon po. What about
afternoon.
a religious priest would like to transfer to a diocesan?
So yeah, that's another situation, no? Yeah, in this case, sister and Father priest who are here, there is no transfer to another institute. So what happens is the religious either will be exclustrated, will request for exclustration to leave the cloister, but still as a member of the congregation, and the person can be admitted by the bishop on a kind of an orientation. Okay, but the person will not be incardinated yet. Now, how can the person actually transfer? Now, the person can only be incardinated in the diocese if the person leaves the institute. If that person is dispensed of his vows in the religious congregation. So that's it. Now, after being, and then after that, then the person, if favorable again to the bishop, then the person will be incardinated in the diocese. Okay, so wait.
Thank you, Pastor.
Sister Lisa, is it okay?
Opo. Thank you po.
Okay. Now we have a question from Julie. Okay. So what if that person, that priest who was already dispensed from his vows in the congregation and later now incardinated in the diocese, Now he wants to come back to the religious congregation. I'm sorry, this will require the beginning again of the novitiate. Because remember, he lost his membership in the congregation. Unlike the transfer from one congregation to the other, when the transfer was done, he had still vows. Okay? Now, in that case, when that religious priest transferred to the congregation, to the new congregation, if he professes perpetual vows, then he is released from his original vows from the congregation. Now, in this case, because it's a diocesan, normally, just normally, like what happened, well, no, it did not happen to us. The person has to undergo formation again. But of course, he does not have to take philosophy again. He does not have to take theology again. But some, from in our congregation kasi, it happened to one who is a scholastic, who was not yet ordained. He left once and came back, had to do the novitiate. Then, you know what? He left again the novitiate, and then he came back again to the novitiate. So the provincial had to ask him to do the novitiate again. Now that's for us. Now, in canon law, it does not say so, but your congregation might have to make a decision in the constitutions regarding this matter. Okay, Father Serge, yes.
What about the period, Father, that is observed? Is there any requirement also from religious to the diocesan? Is it also 3 years?
Okay, for diocesans, okay, this is what I observe, because in canon law, if one is admitted by a bishop into the diocese for at least 5 years, 5 years of ministry in the diocese, the person can be automatically incardinated. But bishops have become very careful about that automatic incardination. The reason is there have been problems in the past, no? Problematic priests transferring to another diocese. So and of course the bishop has to consult the presbyterium. Now in this case, Father, in canon law, that transfer to the diocese, there is no specific years, no? Unlike the transfer from one religious institute to another, which is 3 years. So, which means it is left to the discretion of the diocesan bishop how long a period can one be kind of in an application period within the diocese.
So it could happen that the bishop admits him, incardinates him within 1 year. Is it possible? 1, 2 years?
Well, at least canonically, in the absence of specific years, technically that is possible. Yeah, but it is not wise.
Yeah.
Now, it would not be wise for a bishop to immediately do that. For me, if I were the bishop, I would follow the general guidelines for religious institutes, 3 years at least of observation. And then if favorable, then he can be granted incardination in the diocese. But take note, not all transfers into the diocese are problematic. There are very honorable reasons for one to desire to transfer to the diocese. No? For example, in terms of mission, some diocesan priests, from the more like affluent archdioceses, I've known some from San Jose in the past, they transferred to another kind of a missionary kind of diocese that still lacked the number of clergy. So for those reasons, then probably just after a few years of getting to know the person, then immediately the priest can be incardinated. So
What about
response, Father?
Yeah. What about, Father, cases of a congregation being dissolved, and
Okay.
some of the priests, it's a real thing that's happening to us right now. No? There's a local congregation in a certain diocese. One of them is applying with us. Would that be considered as transfer?
Okay. Yeah. In this case, is it a pontifical right congregation?
No,
But
not
it
yet.
might
I
not.
think it's a diocesan right.
Yeah, Father, yeah, that's quite a significant difference because congregations of pontifical right, duly established, cannot be dissolved. There is a perpetual nature to congregations who have been duly established. No, if there is only one person left in the congregation, then it is possible that the congregation can be dissolved. But for others, like diocesan right congregations, or sometimes they're not even diocesan right. These are just groups of like a few priests who came together and began to live a community life and began to recruit vocations. They are an association of the faithful. It's just like any organization in the church, no? That can be easily dissolved. Now, in that case, Father, if it is an association of the faithful, it is not considered as a transfer.
Okay.
Because when we talk about transfer, we're talking about religious institutes and societies of apostolic life. No, that will be the transfer, but not just any group of priests that were dissolved eventually.
I think they are a diocesan right, but they were asked by Rome to coalesce with similar congregations. Otherwise,
To
they will
aggregate.
be both will be dissolved. I think they were not able to come to terms with one another, and even the
Okay.
priests of this one particular diocesan right congregation were in disagreement how to proceed. So
Yes.
I think they got dissolved. I'm not so sure though.
Yes. Yeah. So,
Uh-huh.
Father, if that's the case, if it were actually dissolved, so one cannot speak of a transfer. It has to be a new application to the congregation, just like anyone else applying for admission in our congregation. Okay? And
In
surely
that
also,
case,
yes,
Father, for a religious institute that they want to join, they will have to undergo postulancy and novitiate.
yes, Father, yes. And the reason is this, no? If one is diocesan right, these canons that I mentioned, they will only pertain to pontifical right, transferring to another pontifical right. Wherein the vows still remain in the pontifical right, the original congregation, while on probation for 3 years. The same cannot be done for diocesan rights because of the real difference of lifestyle. No? So here in these canons, we only refer to pontifical right to pontifical right. Okay? In this case, so if one is a member of that congregation, Father, it was actually merged. Were they actually merged together?
No, they were being asked by the Vatican to merge with other congregations. They considered us also to be merged with us, so they will become UDs as a group, but they did not pursue that. Only a few wanted to join us.
Okay.
So it
So
will
that merging did not happen.
no.
Okay, so in that case, they lost membership in that group. So when they have to apply from zero to any congregation that they want.
What
So it is
happens
not-
to them, Father? Will they be under the bishop, their bishop protector?
Now that they are dissolved, Yeah, now that they're dissolved, they're not, they're just individual members of Christ faithful. No? Because
So
they
they
were
don't-
dissolved.
They don't have a domicile, so to speak. I don't know.
Oh, yes, yes. So they're, once like that kind of a diocesan institute is dissolved, no, there is no juridical personality anymore. So in fact, it ceases to become an institute. So they have no membership anymore in a group. So they become just Catholics and Christians if they are priests. Now there comes a problem if they are priests. Because if you're a priest, you have to be incarnated somewhere. You cannot be a priest who is not incarnated without a head. So we call them acephalous priests, no? Now the priests will have to, remember they are present in a diocese. Therefore they should be under the bishop. The bishop, they can present themselves to the bishop to be guest priests or to be under probation there, but they have to get a permission from the bishop wherever they find themselves to be able to perform sacred ministries. Yeah, so it becomes more complicated if they are priests. Now, if there are seminarians there, if they feel that they have a vocation, then they have to look for a religious congregation to apply to, or to the diocesan seminary. Yeah. Yeah, there are quite a number around that are being founded by individual priests, no? And the problem is sometimes they really make it quite difficult for their recruits. There are even some of these recruits who study whatever philosophy or theology, and they are asked to fend for their own, to pay for their own tuition and fees, which is not, I don't agree with that. If you have to recruit members and you present yourself to be a religious congregation, although you're not yet at that stage, and then you have to take responsibility for the formation of your men. Because take note, they are also fundraising, no? Nagpa-fundraising yan sila. And to do fundraising and yet let these men of theirs go through school and education on their own, I don't think that's fair to them. Okay, let them fix themselves first before recruiting vocations. So I'm sorry, because that is what the Pope Francis has been very careful about. And that is the reason why now diocesan bishops on their own cannot anymore establish institutes of diocesan right. There has to be an approval by the Vatican. So that is the way of the Holy See of Pope Francis to make sure that whenever a diocesan bishop establishes a group, it will be supported and it will be, to a certain extent, the members will not be disadvantaged, or they may not be used by some founders. So it's more supervision by the Vatican. Okay, any questions about so far where we have been discussing?
I have, Father,
Yes, so speaking.
I have one reaction to that, Father. This is Sister Ophelia.
Sister
You know-
Ophelia, yes.
Yes, Father, because we have one sister who transferred, but there was no consultation that had happened. She is 25 years in our congregation. She celebrated her 25 years, then later she transferred to the contemplative.
Okay.
There was no
Yeah.
consultation, Father, because only the time we knew that she is leaving, she asked for permission because she's admitted to the contemplative.
Okay.
Only
So
that.
in that case, sister, she left the congregation first, no?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
Father.
she left, she was dispensed from her vows from your congregation.
Mm-mm. But
And
Father,
then-
at that time, Father, actually, she has already prepared everything, and she's already admitted in the contemplative
Oh.
congregation.
Yeah,
So even our Mother General was surprised.
yeah,
She
yeah.
kept it hidden, and then she just decided when she's about to leave.
Yeah. Now, the monastery that admitted, no, it is standard, no, any institute admitting somebody, especially a transfer from another congregation, should request for information from the congregation where the person is a member, so that the discernment of the receiving congregation will be more complete. So it's really a matter of discernment, really. So yeah, it's discernment, because when you admit a person to your institute, you are seeking also to find God's will. Now, how do you get that somehow approximation? We cannot be totally sure about God's will, but how do we come to an approximation of God's will when we do not even have the basic information, about the person? So yeah, anyway, it happened already.
Then, Father, after 3 years of her provision, she invited us for her perpetual profession there. So, as a
Okay.
community, we attended, Father.
So there's goodwill pa naman. There's goodwill among
Opo.
yourselves. Yeah, that's
Yes,
good.
yes, Father.
That's a good. So happy about her vocation, which hopefully
Yeah,
that's the vocation that she has found and discovered. That's good.
yes,
Yeah,
Father. Thank
that's
you.
great. Yes. Okay, so again, that's a lesson for us. No, I'm happy that it turned out well. No, but in other congregations, it does not turn out well. No, just because of lack of vocations, we cannot just admit people, whoever knocks on the door, because we lack vocations. No, there has to be a good deal of screening, and also requesting for information about the person who is seeking admission to us. That pertains both to congregations and to diocesan seminaries. Okay, so now let's continue. Now, why is such return to the original congregation possible if the person does not decide to remain in the new congregation? Okay, he has the rights and obligations suspended only in the original congregation, but the vows remain until the profession is made in the new institute. So when the person professes perpetual vows in the new institute, then he will be released, or she will be released of her vows in the original congregation. And the member is bound to observe the laws of the new institute from the beginning of probation, of course, also from the time when he or she professes perpetual vows. Okay. Now, this is a kind of this is part of the discernment, no? Part of the discernment regarding vocations, no? Because we have to be very careful, no? When somebody gets sick in our institute, no? Just because the person cannot do his or her work anymore in the institute because of some sickness, then we can dismiss the person. No, look at this Canon 689. Being unsuited to lead a life in the institute in the judgment of experts. Who are these experts? These can be psychologists or doctors, constitutes a reason for non-admission or renewal to perpetual profession. Okay, being unsuited. O tama nga naman, no? If one is unsuited, so therefore you have the basis for non-renewal or non-admission to the vows. However, this is an exemption if the infirmity, if the sickness was contracted because of the negligence of the institute or because of the work performed in the institute. No? So here we're talking about infirmity. No? Infirmity can be physical, no, or psychological. Okay, so if it happened through the negligence of the institute, and this is the only reason, why there is a block to the profession, then the law says there should be no block to that person's admission to the renewal or to perpetual profession. an example of physical infirmity. What? The sister was asked to drive the vehicle, the L300 van. But the L300 van was 40 years old. If there is such an L300 van, 40 years old, it was already dysfunctional. No? There is a problem there. There is a kind of neglect, no, on the part of the institute. And then the sister got an accident. And she lost both of her legs. Now, the problem is, what ministry will she do now? No? And but her disposition is okay, you know. Should she be granted perpetual profession? And the law here, as you can see in general, it says yes. No, yes. Because the infirmity was contracted due to the negligence of the institute. Okay. Now, what about some psychological issues? No, here honestly it's more difficult. How can if a person eventually emerges to be psychologically unstable, is there a possibility that it is because of the negligence of the institute? It's more difficult, no, to determine that, no. If there is no clear proof, that it's because of the negligence of the institute, then you will not be required to admit the person to perpetual vows. Okay. Now here, or because of work performed in the institute. So it's very general, no? Any work can be performed in the institute. So the law seems to be saying, if that infirmity was contracted while the person is a member of the congregation performing works of the institute, then you cannot stop the person from professing perpetual vows. No? That is, if you notice, no, where is the inclination of the law? The good of the person who has become infirm. The law is trying to protect the rights of this person who has become infirm. Protection against what? Just letting the person go, the infirm person, goodbye. We will not admit you. What the law seems to be saying is take care of that person. Take care of that person. Quite difficult. No, I'm not saying that this is a simple matter. I'm not saying that to take care of these persons is easy for religious congregations, especially for congregations which are, rather small with limited financial resources. But that's what the law is trying to say, no? Now, there is something else here, the next slide, which is quite very similar to this case, no? A religious who becomes insane. No? It happens, and it continues to happen, and it might continue to happen also. During the period of temporary vows, cannot be dismissed from the institute, even though is unable to make a new profession. So that's different, no? The fact that you will not grant a new profession, the fact that you will not extend the vows, the person has to remain in the institute. You cannot dismiss the person if a religious becomes insane during the period of temporary vows. God forbid, diba? God forbid that this should happen. God forbid, because it is difficult. Although we had a case in the Society of Jesus, but this happened many years ago it happened during the war, the Japanese occupation and the liberation of Manila in 1940. Father Serge, when was the liberation of Manila? 1944 at ayon, di ba? 1944.
1945?
Yeah, I think 45. Now what
45?
happened? This novice. He was a novice in Sacred Heart Novitiate. Some of you might be familiar. Then there was the bombing of practically the liberation of Manila. It was February to March. That was the period when practically the whole of Manila was reduced to rubble because of the coming of the Americans to liberate Manila from the Japanese. So our foreign students might hear this for the first time. So there was widespread bombing. There was practically not one stone left on top of another in Intramuros, except for the San Agustin Church was not destroyed, but the Jesuit Church, which was about around 400 years at that time old, the Dominican Church, the Franciscan Church, the Recoleta churches, they were all destroyed. Now, what happened to this novice in Sacred Heart Novitiate? At that time, he got very high fever. And because of the confusion, he was left alone. No, he was left alone. Because of that high fever, he developed convulsions and he became insane. Now, what happened? He was a scholastic. So he remained in the Society of Jesus until the time when I was a novice in 1986. Even after my novitiate, he remained there in the novitiate. He was never ordained as a priest. He remained as a scholastic. He already had perpetual vows at that time, no? But even if the person had no perpetual vows, even during the period of temporary vows, the person cannot be dismissed. Yeah. What do you think about that? It's quite heavy, huh? Has this happened to you in your congregation?
Father,
Yes? Yes, who's speaking?
Sister Nena,
Yes, Sister Nena.
I have known somebody who was insane, and she was dismissed from the congregation. So she came back to Indonesia with that situation. So the bishop has to take care of the person until she got well, and then before she brings home to the family.
Family, yeah.
But she is
Yeah.
already perpetually professed.
Perpetually, yeah. So what happened? Was she dismissed from the congregation?
That is what we heard. An Italian congregation, so she was from Italy, and then they brought her home, brought to the bishop, and then the bishop took care of the sister until the time when she was well, and then she brought home to the family. That is why there is the bishop got angry to the congregation because of that situation.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because as we see, hopefully the bishop knew about what canon law provision is there. So this is the canon law provision for that, no? The congregation has to keep the person. Yeah. So we don't need to know what congregation that is, no?
Yeah.
Other question.
Yes, sister, yes.
Father, what if the temporary professed sister is being claimed by the family so that they can take care of her? The community can?
Okay, yes. So this is the case of this insanity also, no? Yeah. Yeah, what the law provides is the person should not be dismissed, no? So therefore, if the person, even temporarily, can be taken care of by the family, okay? With the possibility of resuming common life in the congregation, okay? And then, but also it's possible that, in terms of psychological conditions of some of people who are there are moments of lucidity, no? In cases of bipolar persons or schizophrenic persons, there are times when they can decide clearly, no? If in those moments they decide on their own to leave the congregation, then the process can be started. Not dismissal, it's voluntary departure. Then that can be done. Okay? But it's as long as the person will not be dismissed from the congregation, then the person can be assisted and taken care of by the family. Okay, because remember, the intention of that sister was to remain in the congregation. It just happened that the person became insane. So that was the intention. So we have to respect the intention of that sister. I think that's part of the reason why we cannot dismiss the person. Yeah, did I answer your question, sister?
Yes, brother. Yes,
Okay. Yeah. Okay, let's continue. Okay, now regarding the free departure of the perpetually professed, no? We are talking about separation, still separation from the institute of one who is perpetually professed. So one can seek an indult to leave the institute. That is the term, the official term, when somebody voluntarily wants to leave the congregation as a perpetually professed, it's called an indult to leave the institute, no? Because of the fact that the person is perpetually professed, then there has to be very grave reasons, not just grave reasons. Very grave reasons. Yeah. And because of the perpetual character of the profession, then the petition is to be presented to the general of the congregation. Again, the general will forward the petition to the Vatican, the Congregation for Institutes of Consecrated Life and Societies of Apostolic Life. The general, the supreme moderator, will write his or her own opinion, no, her own desire regarding the person, no. Yes, I approve that the person be granted that indult to leave the institute, and then the council also should be consulted. It's an opinion, no. In this case, each member of the council will write his or her separate views. Each person will write. It is non-deliberative or collegial, meaning the Vatican, because it's the Vatican that will make the decision. They will just give their opinion, the general and the council. Of course, this happens to all our congregations regularly, no? Regularly. All the paperwork can be prepared, should be prepared in the province, in the local country, and everything is sent to the Vatican. To the Vatican, to the generalate of our congregation, or if your generalate is not in Rome, elsewhere. But everything goes to the desk of the prefect of the congregation. Now, is there a Claretian here among you? Wala. For many years, or not for many, for a number of years, surely more than 6 years, until the time when he became provincial of the Claretians, Father Elias Ayuban. He's now the provincial of the Philippine province of the Claretian missionaries. He was working in the congregation in Rome. He is a canon lawyer. So he was in charge of all the matters, all issues regarding religious life in the English language. So Father Elias, if you had sent some documents to your general and forwarded to the Vatican, probably Father Elias Ayuban was able to read those documents. Whether it be departure from the congregation, whether it be something about penalty, about abuse, or whatever. So he knows about it. But everything is in confidence. No, he never talks about it. Of course, everything is confidential. Now, who is the competent authority to issue the indult? As mentioned, for institutes of pontifical right, it is the congregation. For ICL and SAL. Now, for institutes of diocesan right, of course, is the bishop of the diocese, no? Where the house of the religious is located. Now, again, I think I gave some example of this in the past. Now, what if a person lawfully leaves the institute, no? After completing the novitiate or after profession? Okay? He can be readmitted by the supreme moderator, by the general, no? A person who lawfully leaves the institute after completing the novitiate or after profession. Okay, let me just dissect this, huh? Okay. So I'm asking in my mind, does this pertain to temporarily professed or perpetually professed? Leaves the congregation after the novitiate. When one leaves the novitiate, it is temporary profession, no? That person leaves and then comes back. The general. It's the general who is competent. Okay? So again, with the consent of his or her council, now here it says, even without the obligation to repeat the novitiate. When it says, even without, you may or may not require novitiate again. So it is voluntary, no? Based on the assessment, no, of the general, then he or she may decide, okay, I think she has to do 1 year of novitiate again. That's possible. But it says here, even without the obligation. So meaning, now, the person cannot be immediately given the vows again, di ba? Because the person already left the congregation, and when he or she enters, you know, do you agree with me? You cannot immediately give the vows again. There has to be some still period of formation before one is readmitted. Okay? Here we are presuming that the person has been removed from the vows. So there is no vows anymore. Now the person comes back. No, the vows will be given again, but not immediately. What is your opinion? How long from the time the person comes back? How many years before you give the vows? If you were what? The provincial or the general? What would
Father,
yes, anyone? Yes.
in our case, we have to ask the sister or to repeat again 1 year in novitiate.
1 year novitiate. For me, that's totally reasonable. Others? Who says 2 years? Sister, brothers, Kakuku, you're there. Yeah, Kakuku.
Father, for us, if for instance the priest saying first what first the office, they have been given first 6 months of for them to know, to experience whether they want to go like open the and suddenly then you enter novitiate one.
Okay, Kakuku, your audio is not clear, huh? I could not understand your audio.
I'm
Okay.
saying, Father,
Yes?
for if a priest wants to join office from diocese or from another congregation.
Okay. We could not understand. You can type it out sa chat. If you can type it out sa chat, then we can read it. Okay?
Okay, Father.
Okay. So more or less, if our novitiate is 1 year, then I think that's reasonable for a person who is readmitted to do a 1 year of preparation again for the vows, or you might call it a novitiate. Now, the same supreme moderator is to determine the appropriate probation prior to temporary profession, no? And the length of time in vows before making the perpetual profession. So again, it's kind of depends now on your own institute, how you conduct your way of life in terms of formation, and also admission to perpetual profession. So there's some freedom there. Okay. Yes, now there are cases when a person is automatically dismissed from the congregation. No? Who are these persons? One who notoriously defected from the Catholic faith. Of course, when you apostatize, apostasy is when you totally reject the Catholic faith. No, I don't know how a religious can do that, but that's possible. No, I declare it has to be something official, and it is written. I am repudiating the entire Catholic faith. Okay, and then heresy, when you declare something, a doctrine of the faith, which is a total contradiction of what the doctrine is. If you say, for example, that Jesus is only divine, that is heresy. No, heresy only pertains to the truths, the core truths about Jesus Christ, Mary, and the church. Okay? When you deny a dogma, when you deny the dogma of the Immaculate Conception, no? When you say, oh, it's not true that our Blessed Mother was conceived in the womb of her mother, Saint Anne, immaculately conceived. When you declare that is not true, that is heresy. Okay? So, and then schism, when you remove you withdraw submission from the Holy Father. So like the Lefebvres, no, the church established by Archbishop Lefebvre, they did not accept the teachings of the Second Vatican Council. So and then they refused to submit themselves to the authority of the Pope. That is schism. One has contracted marriage, okay, a religious, no, a religious priest, okay, contracted marriage or attempted to do so even civilly. Now, what does that mean? No? Well, it has happened a number of times in the past, surely. A religious priest, for example, gets married because he fell so much in love with his former girlfriend. Now, automatically, the person is dismissed from the congregation. Okay? Of course, no person, no priest will celebrate their marriage, no? So, but if the person like even goes to the mayor, to the justice of the peace to get married civilly, still that is also automatic dismissal. Of course, we're not just talking about priests, even sisters can do that, no? Okay. Other cases, no? The person has been illegitimately absent from the religious house, according to Canon 665, paragraph 2, for 12 consecutive months. Absent siya. And the location of the religious is unknown. Talagang, what do you call that? Disappeared from the face of the earth for 12 consecutive months. Then the person is automatically dismissed. What if the person's location is known? Can you dismiss the person? If the provincial knows actually where the sister is residing. No, you cannot dismiss. The person is not automatically dismissed. Okay? So because the law does not say so. It says that the location of the person is unknown. Okay. Now in these cases, the major superior, that is the provincial, the major superior or the provincial, with the council must juridically establish the dismissal. Now, how do you juridically establish a dismissal? Remember, it was said that these are automatic, no? Automatic meaning if they did it, they are dismissed. But that is up in the air, no? It is invisible. When they got married, when that priest got married, by the fact that he got married, automatically dismissed. That is invisible. Now we have to make it visible. There has to be, first you have to collect evidence. How do you collect evidence? It can be something that is written on paper, or you have witnesses. When you have two witnesses to declare the fact, Father so-and-so got married before the mayor of the town of Tarlac, no? And that will be a declaration of fact. Okay, so now here in the case envisaged by number 1, paragraph 3. What's the number 1, paragraph 3? This one, the illegitimate absence from a community. In that case, in order to be juridically constituted, that statement must be confirmed by the Vatican. Okay? The statement prepared by the provincial has to be submitted to the Vatican for institutes of pontifical right or to the bishop for institutes of diocesan right. And the Vatican or the bishop will confirm the decision. Okay? So here in this case, it's not just the provincial nor the general who will have to make the decision. First, it is automatically dismissed already. It's just that you made something with certain proofs, you submit it, and then the Vatican will confirm, yeah, this seems to be very true. Based on the evidence, then dismissed. Okay, questions about this in cases some of you might have sisters who are not living with you anymore or might have disappeared from the view of the world. Have you experienced this illegitimate absence? The missionaries of the Sacred Heart, no? Yeah, so if the person, so that is a precise, what is the reason for this decision of Pope Francis to change canon law? Imagine your sister or your brother has not been with you for 1 year without any news where he or she is. So you are in a perpetual state of questioning. Is he with us or is he not with us? So the Holy See wants to make clear the status of that person to help us, our religious institutes, in this regard. Okay? Yes, Julie, please.
About the person
Yeah.
confirmation.
Okay. So I think the question is, how do you confirm that the person is really absent? In this case of absence from a community? Okay, yeah. How do you juridically establish the fact that somebody is absent?
Without witnesses.
Okay. It will not hold. There has to be some witnesses.
This is one more than different. Yeah.
The sister was like dismissed ritual vows, but only by the approval of the leader.
Okay, there's a question here. Julie, you mean if a process was not followed, a sister was just dismissed without following the proper procedures, now what happens there? Now, in that case, if the law was not followed, the person can file a case of an invalid decision. An invalid decision by the authorities. Kakuku, are you on mute? Is it Kakuku who is speaking? Okay, please mute yourself. Okay, so in that case, that can happen. If the procedure was not followed, the aggrieved person can file an appeal to the higher authority. Now, the higher authority is the Vatican, meaning the institute, the congregation, or the dicastery for institutes of consecrated life and societies of apostolic life.
I don't know the story, but they can easily dismiss because they have the.
Yeah, but it is illegal. That's illegal because we follow canon law. Because canon law tries to protect the rights of individuals, especially and including religious. So because I know that there have been cases of illicit and I think definitely invalid dismissals also, because canon law was not followed. Okay? Any cases or examples that you'd like to discuss? Not necessarily from your own congregation, but something that you might have heard.
Father,
Yes, please.
how about a sister who is dismissed in her congregation, but she is still wearing her own habit?
Oh, yeah. She must be so much in love with the congregation, huh?
And then
Yeah, she has
I
pride.
don't know if she, because she is recruiting young ladies to be with her. And then
Oh,
I think she has two, but we heard that she is already separated from the congregation.
mhm. Yes, sister, definitely. Since the person has been dispensed from her vows in the congregation, she should not bear, that identity of still belonging to that congregation. So she has no right to wear that habit, actually. Now, so now what can we do? Therefore, reach out to the person, amicably, in a friendly way, especially reaching out to her through her friends, no? Yeah, because the problem there is there might be some deception that might be happening, no? Because the persons that she is recruiting might think that she's still a member of the congregation. No? So persuasion can be done. And what is if persuasion does not work? Well, I guess to the bishop definitely has authority in this regard, no? And maybe she will listen to the advice of the bishop. So that's possible, sister, also. That okay?
Yeah, Father, I am just wondering because how come the bishop has no action over that situation?
Yeah, but I think first it has to be reported, no? It has to be reported to the bishop. Does the bishop already know?
Yeah, I think so.
There, yeah. Really, we are working from the principle of subsidiarity, no? We start from the lower level first, persuasion by a friend. If it does not work, that's in the Gospel of St. Matthew. If the bishop does not want to act, then we can go higher. So we can go higher, meaning to the dicastery for, now in this case, which dicastery? Because she's not a religious anymore. What? Well, the authority who handles the bishop, the congregation for the bishops. Because the congregation for bishops is in charge of the diocese, no? Dioceses all over the world. And hopefully you know what I tell you, when sometimes before I used to think, you will write a letter to the Vatican, no, they will reply after 1 year. I had the impression, but now they reply fast. They reply really fast. In our experience in LST, when we have to have some approvals from the Vatican, in 2 months they do reply. There's more, they have more respect for people who would get out of their way to write to the Vatican, and they do reply. In some cases, I even heard that Pope Francis himself replies to letters. Yeah, I don't know if you want Pope Francis to reply to that request, sister. But I understand, but because the congregation can be put in trouble because of this. No?
Yeah.
Yes, Father Lawrence, please.
Father, let me just add something regarding what Sister Nena had said.
Yes.
We also have those cases of religious who went out of their congregation and started seemingly like starting a new congregation again in our diocese. We have already 3 cases, I think.
Wow.
And since we are a small diocese, the bishop has the immediate action. The problem on our part is most of the times, in the 3 cases that we had, the sisters were stubborn. So they are really stubborn in a sense that they still one of the case, the sisters established a school, which until today we are having trouble since the land that they are occupying is donated to the diocese. However, they are still occupying the place. So when you said that the bishop can ask the dicastery for bishops, then I think that is something which we haven't done yet. But nonetheless, Bishop Buenaventura in his time, Pamadico, did everything that he can. He went there, he ate, he broke bread with them in one way or another, coming to them every time. But then the sisters are really stubborn. So it is until today we have great problem with those. There are only 2 now. Before they were 3. One of them went away, but then they are still wearing the habit. And the problem is they are asking for help within the community, especially from politicians. And of course, the politicians are still supporting them. So
Yes.
we have quite a number of sisters that we experienced that, Sister Nena, here in our diocese.
Yeah, thank you, Father Lawrence. I did not know that there are stubborn sisters. I think there are many stubborn sisters. Okay. No, Father, just one thing, no? If civil law, if there is a violation of civil law in the case, I think the civil authorities have to come into the picture. If they are illegally occupying a property which is not theirs, I think there's a civil law that is being violated there. Yeah, unfortunately, if it has to go to that, it has to go to that. But the various means have been exhausted. Then let civil law. I don't know how that applies. In your approximation of the case, Father, is there a kind of a civil law violation that is already happening?
We are already consulting legal counsels. However,
Lawyers.
It is the community asking the church not to really, just to wait. That's
wait.
the dilemma. Because even Bishop had tried. However, the community wants to wait because for them, they are still sisters. So that's how they see the community. The locals. So there's the problem with us, priests, because we're at the bad light here.
Para kontrabida labas.
Kami yung sumasama dun sa situation. And although we try to explain everything regarding the matter, still maybe that is the wonder of the Velo and everything. Because still they support they're only 2 and they're quite old already, but the community would always tell that they are sisters. Although they are medyo hindi na po magandang treatment nila sa community around them. They're becoming very irate every time. But still, the respect of the people is still there.
And they were able to establish a school.
Yes, Father. The school now is already... that is the problem kasi when the school was closed, since no one wants to send their children to them already, they rented. They have their place rented to another as the school. So so they're really using the land, which is intended by the bishop. The very previous bishop who approved their when they were asking for the diocesan right, which was not really given to them.
Yeah. So how many years has this been ongoing, Father? Just to give us an idea, how many years has this been on?
If I'm not if I'm not Father, I think it's already 20 years. It's since
Oh,
the establishment of the diocese. They were already, well, they were friends of the first bishop.
yes,
That was
yeah,
the first time. Then later on, everything gets sour
yeah,
and they try to live on their own.
yes, yes. So wow. Yeah, so be careful with your friends. Yeah, I
Which is
think
until today, yeah, we're having trouble since well, there are many complaints. We are receiving complaints and we're trying to resolve the case, the complaints. However, of course, without right now we don't have a bishop, so that's more
yes, yeah.
problematic. Yeah.
So this will have to be extended a little more. You don't have a bishop now, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that, Father Lawrence. Yeah, I won't specify the congregation, but what happened? It was a kind of a similar case, controversy. Eventually, yeah, the civil law has to come in eventually. And then, in the case that I know, since there's a religious congregation that is involved, no, the case was brought to the Vatican for decision. So, but in your case, it's different because there's no congregation involved. But here, so we can rely on civil law in this regard. Okay, let's take a break. It's already 3:23. Let's come back at let's come back at 3:50. Okay, let's be back at 3:50 to resume our class. Okay, let's resume our class now. Okay, just to continue the various situations we're in, some religious should be dismissed. No, these are again grave violations of the obligations of religious life. Okay, of course, in 1397, murder, somebody abducts or imprisons or gravely wounds another person, actually procures an abortion, okay? Then that is a very serious case, no? A person has to be dismissed when somebody actually procures an abortion. Now, in this case, the person, the woman herself, or the sister, and the accomplice, they have actually both procured an abortion. It's not just the woman. The person who induced the woman to have an abortion, they are equally culpable. So the penalty in the church in this case is latae sententiae, or automatic excommunication. No? Meaning they cannot share in the sacraments of the church because of the excommunication. Apart from that, the person, if he or she is a religious, they have to be dismissed from the congregation. If one is a cleric, okay, and the cleric lives in concubinage, living with a woman, no? In this case, then the person, the cleric, has to be dismissed from the institute. Continues in some other external sin against the sixth commandment of the Decalogue. What is this sixth commandment of the Decalogue? The sixth commandment of the Decalogue is thou shalt not commit adultery. No? But what this means is a person continues to commit sin against chastity. It's a person continually committing a sin against chastity. Then that person must be dismissed. No? And of course, obviously, something that is committed against chastity is always a scandal, no? In the church, no? So let me be careful with that. Now, what if the person is a diocesan priest? What if a diocesan priest is living in concubinage? So in this case, the bishop has all the authority to suspend the priest from performing ministry in the church. Okay? That is, in fact, the bishop should do that. The bishop should not let that just happen because it is a scandal to the people of God. And the bishop, if the bishop just keeps quiet about that, then the people might consider it as a normal thing for the diocesan clergy. No, in this corollary situation, the bishop should not really dismiss, because how can you dismiss a priest who is already ordained? He can put him under suspension. Okay. Now, in these cases, the major superior should collect the evidence concerning the facts and the imputability of the offense. Imputability means, is the person guilty? The major superior, the provincial, should prove that the person is guilty. And you have to have witnesses and evidence. Okay? It cannot just be hearsay. Huh? When you hear, there's a chismis, there's a balita, that this priest is living in concubinage, the superior cannot just take that as a fact. No? There has to be proofs regarding the allegation. Now, the accusation and the evidence are then to be presented to the member, to the religious himself or herself, and he or she should be given the opportunity to defend himself or herself, to show that the allegation is false. He or she has to be given that opportunity. Okay? Now, these are situations when the religious may be dismissed, can be dismissed. The superior has to make the judgment whether or not to dismiss or not. So it is voluntary, no, on the part of the superior. As long as the offense is grave, it is external, it can actually be proven externally, imputable, meaning guilty, and juridically proven. So these are the situations of habitual neglect of the obligations of consecrated life. Okay, here, this is a very important statement. No? If in case the religious is not performing, for example, what are the obligations of consecrated life? Apostolate, mission, ministry. If the person has been given an assignment by the provincial, and yet the person does not accept the assignment, that's serious, huh? Because, we are religious for mission. We are religious for the apostolate. If it is habitual, then that person may be dismissed. If proven by the provincial, no? Repeated violations of poverty, chastity, and obedience. In the case of societies of apostolic life, the person does not live in the community. Again, that is a violation, but it has to be repeated. No? Paulit-ulit. No? It's not just once, but continuous, repeated. Obstinate disobedience to the orders of the superiors in grave matters. What are these examples of grave matters? I would say matters pertaining to the vows and matters pertaining to the apostolate. These are grave matters. You were assigned to go to this parish of hours to be assistant parish priest. You did not show up. Oh, that's very great, very great. And it should happen not just once. It should be obstinate. There has to be a repetition of that violation. Okay? Grave scandal arising from the culpable behavior of a member. Well, usually when we talk about sexual scandals, these are always grave, no? Sexual scandals. These are grave scandals. Because of that, a person may be dismissed. Okay? Still, there are many. There are many. Obstinate attachment to or diffusion of teachings condemned by the magisterium of the church. These would pertain to the, it can be things about heresy, that can be one, okay? But even matters not pertaining to heresy. Teachings condemned by the magisterium of the church. For example, the church constantly teaches that in terms of control of birth, that we are not to use artificial means of contraception. No, the church has been constant with that. We use only natural means. Now, if you have a priest who continually teaches that, well, it's okay, no problem with artificial contraception, that religious priest can be dismissed by the superior. It is not heresy, no? Then even if it's not heresy, but it is, the person has that capacity to always to share that teaching that is condemned by the church, and it is obstinate, meaning the person has been warned by the provincial, please, that is not being taught by the Catholic Church, please stop it, or keep quiet. You know, again, there's another violation, it's obedience also, no? So if it is repeated and it is obstinate, then the person may be dismissed. That's a ground for dismissal. Public adherence to materialistic or atheistic ideologies, communism. This is practically a case of communism. No? The unlawful absence mentioned in 665 paragraph 2, which we already discussed. Not in this case. In 665.2, it is 1 year, no? 1 year of absence, and you do not know where the person is. Automatically dismissed. In this case, if for 6 months, shorter, the superior is given the chance to make a decision also. It's not automatic, but the superior can assess the situation. This sister has been invisible for 6 months. We do not even know where she is. She has not even told us where she is. Then that is a ground of a possible dismissal from the institute also. Okay, this is from Pope Francis. This is a revision of the Code of Canon Law, Canon 729. Let's go through it sentence by sentence. The dismissal of a member of an institute proceeds pursuant to 694(1) and 2 and 695. We will see that in a while. Here is we are told about the procedure, how to dismiss. No? Now, the constitutions may also define other causes for dismissal, not enumerated in canon law. Provided that they be commensurately serious, it should be external, it should be attributable, and it should be juridically proven. Okay? And then the procedure established in 697 to 700 should be observed. Now, the provisions of Canon 701 are applicable to the dismissed member. So let us see what are the procedures. So here we have to go to 697 up to 700. Okay, take note. This will reply also to the question of Julie about a sister who was just dismissed now without the proper procedure. Now, the major superior, if he judges or if she judges that the process of dismissal should be commenced, okay, first she has to consult the council, council. The provincial should not make decision on her own immediately. the council should be convened. Okay? They should collect and complete the evidence, witnesses, documents, no? They or the major superior should warn the member in writing. Dear sister so and so, it has been brought to my attention that you have committed this. We have investigated the situation and we have found the following information to be accurate. Okay? So that is the situation. The member should be warned in writing, and canon law says or before two witnesses. No? Normally, it's just the writing would suffice. No? Now, when you write the religious, well, where do you send it? Okay, if the religious is a member of one of the community houses, send it by whatever, hand the letter. To prove that the letter has been received, there should be a receiving copy. Received by sister like this and this. And the receiving copy should be kept by the provincial. That is the warning. No? Now, if the sister is living elsewhere in another province, in Mindanao, okay, you can send a letter by LBC, but it has to be received. You know, there's a process no, in LBC that the person, the addressee, or another person in the house should receive the document. Or I think it's also called registered mail. Registered mail. So anything that will prove that you have sent the letter and she has received it. Now, there are certain conditions, no? Before dismissing a religious, there should be an explicit warning in the letter that the dismissal will follow unless the member reforms. There's a warning, huh? And the reasons for the dismissal should be clearly expressed in the letter. And the letter should indicate that the member is given every opportunity to defend himself or herself. Okay? Everything has to be exhausted to assure this defense. No? You are invited to come to me, to see me, to explain your side, either physically, face-to-face, or in writing. Okay? Now the letter has been sent. If the warning has no effect, another warning is to be given. Okay? After an interval of 15 days. Okay, an example would be you are requested to come to the provincialate house, to come here and this be your residence. You send that letter because the sister is living outside of common life. Okay? The person that did not reform, meaning she did not change, she did not come to the provincialate house. After 15 days, so you count 15 days, no? If within 15 days, nothing happened, she did not come, then you have to write another letter. Okay? Sorry, you do not have to write another letter. No need to write a letter. After 15 days from the time of the last warning passed in vain, the last warning, the original letter, is also ineffectual, then you already have a proof of incorrigibility. Incorrigibility means the capacity to be corrected. So therefore, you have to let 15 days, no, from the time of the last warning. And now, the person does not even reply to your letter. No, the defense of the member is insufficient. So here in this case, this period of 15 days that you give the person to reform, to obey, then if there is nothing that has happened, you have already proved that the person does not want to change. Okay? So the defense is insufficient. So then what happens? Forward to the supreme moderator, to the general, all the documents, all the acts that you have collected, including the letters that you have sent to the sister, even the letters that have been sent before, signed by the provincial and the notary. A notary is the province secretary or the secretary of the provincial. That can be the notary. And then the signed replies of the member of that person, if ever she responded, if she explained her side, no, then all those documents have to be sent to the provincial, to the supreme moderator, the general. Okay. Now the letters have been sent to the. Okay. From there, any questions? Any questions from the level of the province, from the level of the data gathering, the evidence gathering, from the level of trying to connect with the person, the member of the congregation. Any questions or clarification? So for now, yes, please.
Father, actually, we have one experience of that in our congregation, and the same process was done. That was 1990s. In the 90s, after 5 years, the Vatican sent us the reply that exercise charity, do not dismiss the sister.
Okay. Yes.
But it was really a grave reason for her to be dismissed.
To be dismissed, huh? So all the documents were sent to the general, no?
Yes, Father. And it was sent to the Vatican, and it was scrutinized, and the reply was exercise charity, because the sister is an elderly sister already. I guess in the 70s. Early.
Sorry, what was the reason why you think the Vatican asked you to exercise charity? What was the reason? Because?
Maybe they considered the age. No, it was put there. Are you not charitable enough that if you dismiss the sister, to whom shall that sister will go? Who will take care of that sister? Because the sister is about 70-year-old.
She's very old already. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I was actually surprised when you said that the Vatican asked, given all the evidence, the incorrigibility, no, then still the Vatican asked you, please exercise charity. Now, when we heard about the reason, now
But Father, actually, the process started when she was 65-year-old. Until such time.
Yes.
She was.
Yes. But even then, no, that's quite well, yeah, it's old. It's old already. So now what happened, sister, after that?
After that, Father, of course, the congregation took care of the sister.
Okay.
Till she reached 80 plus. Then, until she expired.
She passed away. Okay. Yeah. But if that sister were about 40 years old, probably the Vatican let her go because of the incorrigibility. No? You think so? Yeah, but there was that factor of old age that the Vatican considered. Okay, now the documents are with the general. No? And the general has to do something together with his or her council. Now what? The council must comprise at least 4 members. No, it has to be 4 members separate from the general. No, the general plus 4. Now in a collegial fashion together, in the presence of everyone, weigh the evidence, discuss the arguments, and check the defense of the member. And then they will have to do a secret vote. Okay. The question, therefore, is whether to dismiss or not to dismiss. Now, if it were decided to dismiss the religious, a decree of dismissal is to be drawn up. It's a document, no? A decree stating the fact of the dismissal, and which should express in summary form the reasons in the law what was violated in the constitutions? And what was committed actually by the religious? So it has to be explained in summary form, in law and in fact, for validity. Now, regarding the decree for dismissal that is in Canon 700, it will have no effect if it is not confirmed by the Vatican. So from the decision of the general with the council, the decree of dismissal is prepared and it is sent to the Vatican office. So that process is called confirmation. A decision has been made by the general and the council. That decision has to be confirmed still by the prefect of the Dicastery for Consecrated Life and Societies of Apostolic Life. Okay? If the matter concerns an institute of diocesan right, then the confirmation will be done by the local bishop. Okay. Now, for validity, the decree must indicate the right of the person to have recourse to competent authority. So the decree should indicate that if you have, you can have recourse to the competent authority, meaning to the Holy See, okay, to the Dicastery for Consecrated Life, and within 10 days of receiving the decree. Within 10 days, then, if he wants to appeal, then he or she has to write the Holy See within 10 days. Okay, what are the effects of dismissal lawfully carried out? The vows and all the rights and duties deriving from profession will automatically cease. No? Now, if a member is a cleric, a deacon, or a priest, he may not exercise sacred orders until he finds a bishop who will receive him into the diocese and allow him to exercise his sacred orders. So we discussed that case earlier, no? So that person cannot do ministry after the dismissal from the institute. Now the question is, will the bishop allow him? Given the situation, the bishop should consult the provincial. Remember that. If you become a bishop, well, no sister here can become a bishop, but if Father Lawrence, if you become a bishop, you have to ask the provincial, this person wants to work in my diocese. May I gather some information from you about him? And then the bishop will know, oh, this person has been dismissed from the congregation. Will you accept, Father Lawrence? If it were a case of, as you notice, no, the reasons for the dismissal are quite serious. No bishop is obliged to accept or to give faculties to any priest who comes to him. So now what's next for that person? What's next? What can he do now if he's not given the faculty to celebrate the Mass in the diocese? Now here in this case, no. Sister Odisa mentioned about charity, no, pastoral charity for a person, even if the person is dismissed. I think what the provincial can do is this, no. Because the person is still a priest, remember, if he's a cleric, no? The provincial, can help him with spiritual direction with somebody. Because of the seriousness of the matter, it is probable that the person might not have the vocation to the priesthood. No? And so therefore, the next step really for that priest would be the process of dispensation from the obligation of celibacy. No? In other words, we call that laicization. No? Now again, the provincial cannot force him to do that. Only by brotherly exhortation, then the person can probably consider that step. the person might not actually have the vocation to the priesthood. Then the next step would be dispensation from the obligation of celibacy, so that the person will not anymore perform his functions as a priest anywhere. Now, if there are cases, there might be an urgent case of expulsion from the house. To follow all these procedures previously mentioned might take a long time because there's an urgent case. No? Now, a member can be expelled forthwith from the house by the major superior if there is grave external scandal. No? You cannot let the scandal prolong because there's a long process that has to be followed, investigation, 15 days to pass, submit documents to the Superior General. The Superior General writes to the Vatican. That might take some time. But in a case, for example, there is grave external scandal, then a member may be expelled by the major superior from the house. If it is something that extremely grave and there's imminent harm to the institute. Okay? Now, if there is a danger in delay, in fact, canon law allows the local superior, the superior of the house, to expel a member from the house. But the local superior should have the consent of the council. You know, it's not just provincials who have councils. Even local houses should have an advisory body, which is called a council, so that the local superior does not decide alone. Again, that is quite very urgent, no? Very urgent. Now, where does the person go if the person is expelled from the house? Where should he or she go? Remember, she is still a member of the institute. She is still a member of the congregation. She can be sent to another community, but you cannot just send her out of the house and throw her things out there in the road, along the road, no? Just like what we see in the movies. It cannot be like that, no? But there is, here the context is, in a particular house, there is imminent danger. There is an external scandal. So now that person has to be removed from that place to another place of the congregation, while the scandal is being addressed, no? Now, if probably the religious is the cause of the scandal, no? Then the process has to be, the investigation has to be done after the expulsion from the house. It's quite dramatic, no? That situation seems to be very dramatic. Yeah. Now, the major superior, the provincial, is to introduce a process of dismissal in accordance with the norms of law. Okay? As we have said, all this procedure has to be followed or refer the matter to the Vatican. But surely the provincial, he should be able, or she should be able to handle the preliminary phase of the investigation before forwarding the matter to the general, eventually to the Vatican. Yeah, we have been hearing very sad cases, no? Very sad, that might be affecting our hearts. But let us not be drawn, but these are realities of our religious life. No? In case you have questions, please raise them at this point. Wow, very quiet. Oh yes, what's your nickname again? Your nickname? Tuan. Okay, Tuan of the Spiritans, yes.
In case dismissed from some people, one priest is dismissed from the religious life or religious communities. How his faculties about priesthood is still remains the faculties or suspended.
Okay. Now, if a person, a priest, is dismissed, the faculties are removed. Yeah, because the person is dismissed from the congregation, the person has no more vows. Therefore, even the faculties are also removed, from that priest. remember, the faculties are given by the bishop. Huh? Like even for us Jesuits here, the Ateneo, all our faculties, we receive a letter from the Bishop of Cubao, presuming that we are Jesuits. But if we are not Jesuits anymore, if one were dismissed, so the faculty does not hold anymore. It's now invalid. So the religious who was dismissed cannot perform the sacraments in the Diocese of Cubao.
Which means that priest cannot say the mass anymore.
Cannot say the mass publicly with the people. Yeah, it's very sad. It's very sad, really. Now, the priest can celebrate mass privately. For example, if he lives in an apartment somewhere, then he can have an altar and celebrate mass privately. In fact, because he's still a priest. He's still a priest. Very quiet. Sister Elisa, do you have a question? Joke lang. Okay. Father Serge, yes, please, Father Serge.
Father, all these provisions in the canon law, do they apply to societies of apostolic life?
Yes, Father. Yeah, when we discuss soon the next module on Society of Apostolic Life, yeah, these apply also to societies of apostolic life.
Earlier, I don't know what we were talking about now, but it has something to do related to this. And you said that somehow it's more lenient with the SAL. How is that?
Lenient, yeah, I forgot in what context.
I
Yeah.
think also in the dismissal.
Okay, well, yeah, I forgot about the lenient part, no, but because here what we're discussing here is, okay, we are trying, the church in canon law is trying to kind of steer a balance, no, between the rights of the institute, to live out its charism to the fullest, and also the right of the individual member of the congregation or the institute. So you see that dynamic there. No, yeah, dismissal because in fact, in a number of cases you saw required dismissal, but other cases may be dismissed. No, in that case, Father, as long as the rights of the individual member is safeguarded, and at the same time the congregation takes action, to avert scandal and to keep our mission, still effective, then it has to be followed. So whether that's lenient or not, I'm not quite sure. But for your question, this has to be followed. We have, I would say, in terms of the leniency, it has to protect both the institute and the person involved. So it should not be lax, that I'm saying, no? But I think, Father, as long as we follow these procedures here and the requirements, we're in good shape. Whether you are a religious institute or a society of apostolic life.
Regarding cases of urgency, Father, at
Yes.
the local level, no, you said earlier that the local superior can take action.
Yeah, in case of a very extreme situation of direct expulsion from the house, yes.
What if it is the local superior who has incurred that grave
spirits
scandal?
involved.
Who
Yes.
should really take care of it?
Yeah. It should now be the major superior who has to take action in this regard. The major superior can expel that superior, local superior, from the house of the institute. for example, of the Society of Apostolic Life. Yes.
Does the council, the local council, do they have any obligation regarding this?
In this case, since the governance in the house is not functioning because the local superior himself is the culprit, I think the provincial has all the authority to act on his own with his own council. They have the authority, even if the local council, the house council is not consulted.
Okay.
Because now the hands is in the provincial's hands. And the law gives a lot of leeway for provincials to major superiors to make decisions. Yeah.
Thank you, Father.
Okay, thank you, Father Serge. Oh yeah, there were questions there on the chat board. I saw. Let me check. Sorry, I have to look at the chats. Where's the mouse? Let's see the mouse. It's jumping. Yeah, the mouse is not going there.
Father, I can read it for you.
Okay, please. Yeah,
What
please.
if-
Yeah, they
What
can.
if I'm not sure. I'm not. It's not very clear. What if on his school owned by their congregation? I don't know at what particular time that he raised this question.
Okay, who asked the question? Can I identify?
Angel.
Okay, Angel, yeah, you can verbalize your question. Angel from Samar. Unmute yourself, Angel, so you can verbally ask the question. Loban. Okay, Loban. Okay, anyway, the question is not quite clear, no? Brown out now. Okay, sorry. Yeah. Other questions on the chat? Please read. Yes, anyone could read the messages on the chat?
From Brother Sylvester, Father.
Okay, please, yes.
The first one. For the diocesan priest who wants to join our congregation, they are given 6 months to discern. In close parenthesis, can be in one of our parishes or schools or in pre-novitiate, and then enter novitiate for 1 year.
Okay. Yes, that's a good system. No, the diocesan priest wanting to enter the congregation. There are different ways to do that. No, the diocesan priest can first be exposed in the congregation through the works of the congregation, and then just to help him discern his decision. And then after such a point, then the diocesan priest has to apply to the congregation. And then what happens next for the period of formation? Did you mention a novitiate? 1 year of what? 1 year of novitiate. Yeah, for that diocesan priest. Yes, that's and then after the 1 year of novitiate, I suppose the diocesan priest now professes temporary vows. No? Temporary vows first. Yes. Okay, that's a good 6 months is quite a good deal of time for the person to discern. Another question there, please.
Priest is excommunicated.
Okay, so the question there is if a priest is excommunicated by the bishop and then he is still celebrating mass publicly. Yes. Now, for excommunication, there are two kind of general penalties. One cannot receive the sacraments, the 7 sacraments. Any of those cannot be received by the excommunicated person. Number two, the person, if he's a priest, is prohibited also to perform the sacred ministries. Okay? And he is celebrating it publicly. Now, what can be done is the bishop. The bishop can give him a warning, no? That it is prohibited for him to do so. And then what if he does not follow? And then it is a sign really of a very serious kind of a serious violation already. The person is already excommunicated. Still, he disobeys the bishop. Then the bishop can write a letter to the dicastery for the clergy and report the matter. And then the congregation for the dicastery for the clergy can actually initiate the laicization of that priest. And the dispensation from the obligation of celibacy so that the priest may be defrocked. So it can come to that. And I would say if that's the situation, it's good that is done, because it's a mockery. It's a mockery of the church. The fact that a person violated something serious and still disobeys the legitimate authority and orders of the bishop. Yeah, so that's my response to that. Okay, so we can end the class here. Okay, now I just want to say, we don't have a final examination, no? We don't have a final examination. All I require from you is a final reflection paper, similar to the midterm reflection paper. So it's not too heavy. It's more of a reflection, no? I've already provided the guidelines in your Canvas. So because of that, we will have class during review week on Tuesday again. And then during the exam week, since we do not have any exam, we'll also have a class during exam week. No? So because, for the other courses, since they have final examinations, and it's quite heavy, there are no more classes actually during exam week and review week. But our case is different. So I really decided that this will not be a very academic class with final exam, difficult to prepare, just reflection paper. So therefore, we'll have class on review week and then on final exam week. So we can cover sufficiently all our topics for the course.
Thank
Julie,
you, Father.
Review session because
you had a comprehensive exam. So, but anyway, just yesterday, I uploaded our last class in your Canvas. So the classes, the recordings are in Canvas. So you can view the recordings there. And even also for those who were absent on a particular day. Okay, so can end our class here. We'll see you next week for our continuation of our class. We'll focus now on societies of apostolic life and then formation of the diocesan clergy.
Thank you, Father.
So let's end our class with a prayer in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Okay, so thank you so much to everyone. Thank you.